in the beginning. Yeah, in the in
In the beginning. So I'm going to read two parts that I've taken out of said book. Now, when I was reading through the book, I realized I actually have so many different versions everywhere. I thought I combined it all, but clearly I haven't. So I kind of took one beginning from one beginning from another. Now, as I said in my intro video, the reason why I feel like it's important to start with the beginning is because I truly believe that your start, to some degree, dictates the journey that you take. If I was really starting from the beginning that I remember, I just think it's a bit too deep for the first episode. When I read the beginning, and I'm talking like from around the age of 5, the things that I remember, I just think it's a bit too much for the first episode, and I think I need to get comfortable in this before exposing such truths. So, I have pulled out two beginnings, and I'm going to read the first one, and then we're going to go from there. I had a beautiful start in life. My parents married from the age of 21 and 24. They bombarded me and my sisters with love every day. We would spend weekends uptown visiting museums and exhibitions, returning to our 3-bed terrace home designed with colour in mind, ending our days as a family sitting around the table with a home-cooked meal, then mum reading Bible stories to put us to sleep. Just talking about that beginning, this particular beginning, I don't actually remember all of this. This was written based on some of the memories my sisters shared with me, or my sister shared with me, and also my mum, and obviously the witnesses that were around when I was younger and would tell us, I know you would go here and you would do this. I genuinely don't remember. I have huge chunks of my childhood erased from my brain. And I've met a couple of people that have the same. And I remember when I told my mum, like, Mum, I don't remember a lot. And she was like, what trauma are you holding? I didn't want to get into that, but I have erased parts of my childhood. So yes, I remember the ages, I would say like 4 to 7-ish. A lot happened during those years. I remember starting school. I remember certain things that happened in school, but then there was just this period where I just don't remember. I am the eldest of 3 girls, and I'm the eldest daughter, eldest niece, eldest granddaughter. So those who are the eldest, all those things, you understand how it feels. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing. I do believe though, like growing up being that, there is a lot of pressure. And although I feel like I coasted through a lot and I did my best, and my best was always enough, even if it didn't feel like I was successful, was always enough for my family. I would say, based on this first beginning and based on genuinely what I do remember over the course of my life, I was born into a rich family filled with love, joy. And that's not just my immediate family, that's also my extended family, my aunties, my uncles. Don't get me wrong, there were issues that I remember that would happen, but it was never against me. I always felt loved, I always felt appreciated. I say that, but I do remember some incidences with like aunties, and you know, when you're at an age, you're like, oh, I hate this person and I hate that person, and my mum's so moany, my auntie's this. But as an adult, I can recognize what love and discipline is and how important it is. And I feel like I had a very strong foundation, and my grandparents were amazing. I was close with my mum's parents because they lived over here in Brixton up until, I want to say, I was like 6. I remember being in school and I used to go to their house like almost every day after school. So I loved my grandparents, and even though I remember as I got a bit older, like my grandma was so miserable, but then when I got even older, I loved her so much. She was just the cutest thing, and she always wanted the best for me. So I had a very stable upbringing, foundation, the start, a very love-filled, you can say religious, but faith-based, like my whole family were Christians, and I grew up in the church. And so I would say that I had a really good start. And that's that. I'm now going to read the second beginning, the beginning that I actually started my book at originally. So when I first started writing this book, it started from college. And this is what it reads. It's Monday, the 8th of September, 2003. My first day of what I would describe as the beginning of adult life. I stood in front of my mirror at 7 a.m. on the morning of September 8th, 2003. Perfecting the directions of my hair, I cornrowed half of one side up and then had the ends out in a hairband. I did the same on the other side but left it out with a curly effect. I then finished off with slicking my baby hairs on the side of my baby face. My clothes hung staring at me from the night before. I was a tomboy at heart and also felt that a tomboy look was appropriate to determine my place in college. Being physically attacked as a child by two boys every day for what felt like years forces you into a certain state of mind as you grow. And that's that. I had a great start in terms of being born into a family that were ready to love and take care of a child. But as you go into the world, you experience things. And from what I was told, again, I don't remember everything, but my aunties will regularly sit down and tell me about the child I was, my mum, my dad, how confident I was. I used to sing, and I would just be this person that honestly sounded like a stranger to me. I was like, what do you mean? But I was always told that I was this vibrant, confident young girl. And then when I went to school, I remember being bullied by two boys, one black, one white. I remember their names as well. And it was physical, so they used to like push me down, kick me, punch me, all of that. It felt like it went on for years, but I actually can't remember how long it went on for. But what I do know is when my mum found out, she marched down that school and it stopped. And then these boys then became my love interests. Weird. And this was like year 1, 2. It wasn't in reception. So I was bullied. I then became a bully. I started bullying a boy who was from another country who had come over, and I started picking on him and chasing him around the school playground and attacking him and whatever. It stopped. It didn't last long. But now when I look back, I was like, because of what happened to me, I then took it out on someone else, and it happened, and it was a boy. I would never have bullied a girl. So there was that. And I believe that experience started to mold me into who I was going to be. And even reading that second beginning, which talked about, being a tomboy and going into college and feeling like I needed to be that until I found my place, because dressing a certain way and having a certain attitude, it was almost a mask, like I'm tough. And even going into middle school, so before I went to my high school, I went to middle school for a year, and I remember a really pivotal moment, I would say, when this boy, I remember his name as well, I can't remember why this happened, but he came into a room that I was in, like the music room, and he like pushed me down. I fell to the floor. And in that moment, I remember feeling like that young girl again, but I got so angry and I got up and I attacked him and I left marks. And then I was like, everyone looked at me like, oh gosh, Marina, you're this, you're that, and blah. And I became this like famous girl that could beat up boys. And I ran with it. I was like, yeah, because that will protect me. So when I went into college, I was very much aware of how insecure I was. I really wanted to make sure that no one would see that insecurity in me. It's really hard, because the thing is, I was always very insecure about my looks, and it was only one thing. So my whole family, I feel like this is probably something separate to talk about, but I'll just touch on it. My whole family have gaps in the middle of their teeth, and I love my family and they're beautiful, but I really didn't. As I got older, I realised that I didn't like it. I hated it. I don't remember ever being bullied specifically for it, but I didn't like it, and that was enough. So I was carrying that insecurity, and to protect myself, I had to put on this persona, which I did quite well, I think. But between being bullied by two boys at a very young age and going to school, even like high school, there was an in-between part. I was in church, and there was a play scheme, and I used to go to the play scheme, loved the play scheme. And I had friends that I'd known all my life. They're still friends to this day. Our families were very close, like we're god brothers and sisters and all of that. And we were the same age. I just remember there was one girl who wasn't a part of this, but she went to our church. I want to say she was a couple years older than us, but I'm not sure. But anyway, she was typically pretty, I would say. At the time, I thought she was really pretty and, I guess kind of looked up to her. I was this really skinny little girl with this insecurity that I don't think I really had at that time. And I just remember that she would decide, so she was like the leader, like Regina in Mean Girls. That was her. And then she had her little minions. And she would decide when everyone could be my friend or not. And I just remember one particular time, she decided that she didn't like me in that moment and no one was to talk to me, so no one was talking to me and I was just there. So we all went to play ice skating. I used to go ice skating quite often and I loved it. And I was by myself and I remember just like putting on my skates, like just ice skate. I knew how to ice skate, it was fine. I don't remember exactly how I was feeling, but I imagine that it wasn't nice. And then she came up to me and she said, I think it's not very nice for you to be here by yourself. So for the time that we're here, we're friends. But as soon as the day's over, don't talk to me. And I was like, okay. And literally, we were like best friends. I had the best time. The day was so fun. We were laughing, joking, falling over each other. That it didn't feel fake. It felt really just lovely. And then I remember when it got to the end and I was taking off my skates and I had Smarties and I offered it to her. And she's like, don't you remember what I said? I'm not your friend. And I was like, okay. And I just feel like from that instance, my confidence, the confident girl that my family used to still tell me about today, began to just wither away. I didn't lose my confidence completely. I definitely began to change because I was isolated by my friends and forced to be isolated. I notice now that I then began to just isolate myself. So I've now become a person that I genuinely love my own company. I love being by myself and I would pick it over anything. But I do think that has a lot to do with the isolation that I was put through that was involuntary, like it was forced upon me and I had to just deal with it. So although my beginning, I believe was a very rich beginning, well-intentioned, regardless, there were things along the way, more than that as well. There's a lot of things that happened to me. Those things stuck with me. Because like I said, I have erased a lot from my childhood, but a lot of the trauma has not left me. So I remember these things. And that's why nowadays, bullying and just nastiness is so much more accessible and so much more seen because of social media. It really irks me when I see things and read things and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Do you understand how much impact you are having on people? And I know some people don't care because, whatever demonic spirit is in them and we need to pray it out of them. But it's also do you realize, are you just saying something so flippant and not really deep in what you're doing? Because if it wasn't for the love of my family and for that foundation, those things would have broken me. And I mean, to be honest, they did break me in the moment. And there's so much I can say, but this first episode really is just me touching on the beginning because I'm going to be covering so much because there's so much to cover. And some of the things that I may say or relay from my past, I think it's necessary to understand where I've come from. And although I've had that love, the negative really does stick. And that's why now when people leave comments under your posts or whatever, if they're negative, you can have 100,000 positive comments celebrating you, and then you get 2 that are really negative, really nasty, and it affects you, and it's why is that? But it's true, it happens. And I guess I just want to also encourage people, because I really do feel like because of the things that happened to me in regards to friendships and people treating me the way they did, I became quite cold to the people around me. I became quite strong and like no one could touch me. I was ready to fight. When I got to college, that beginning, I was ready to fight. Like, you were not gonna make me feel like that little girl again. Absolutely not. Even if I lost, I'm fighting. Not everyone comes out of it that way, and I'm not saying that was the best way to come out of it, but I was very much like, even when my friends would get into things, I was that friend that always got involved and would like almost take on the burden of their drama and be the one to stand up and be like, absolutely not, because I didn't like bullies, and I didn't like people that would kind of go after those that they think are weak. And I felt like that happened quite a lot in college, and I was always that person to stand up because I felt like I was protecting myself in those moments, but I wasn't. And I later realized that, you know what, no one was fighting for me, no one championed for me through any of it. I had to just fend for myself. And maybe if I spoke up more, maybe if I told my family, you know, things would be different. I'm sure it would be, but I didn't. And it definitely dimmed my light. And by the time I was like 17, 18, maybe 18, my confidence had completely been shattered. And that was due to other things that happened. But generally, my confidence was shattered. And I kind of put it down to those particular times when I was bullied. Now, I don't like to say that is my beginning, because my beginning was fantastic. Like, my parents, my sister, to be honest, I don't really remember my sisters. I remember the middle one because she came after me, and I remember us fighting a lot because she was just, not fighting, me allowing her to attack me because she was 5, how old is she? 5 years younger than me. So obviously I was a big kid and she was a baby, and she just used to, ugh. And I don't even remember us as children together, but I remember us as teenagers. And yeah, so I actually don't remember much with my sisters, but I know that there was a lot of love. I know that there still is a lot of love. And I think I just made it a point that I needed to protect myself, because the people that say that they are in your corner are not. So that's one side. But I think having the beginning that I had with my family is why I am who I am today. Because I always had that. And I just allowed the negative to overpower it for a long time. But you know, regardless of our beginnings, regardless of the foundation of how we grew or lack of foundation, when you get to a certain age, it becomes a choice. And I understand that it's really hard for people that have had a really awful beginning. It's really easy to say, I just choose different. But when you're an adult, it's time to choose, because I know people that have had the most horrific childhoods and have continued that cycle. And then I know people who have had horrific childhoods that have broken the cycle and have become absolutely extraordinary. Because every single person in this world is extraordinary, but we tap into whatever we choose to tap into. A lot of the time, we allow the world, the evilness that is the world, people, things, to affect the extraordinary person within. And I just believe it's choice. It gets to a point where I no longer want to hear about, you know, my mum this and my dad this. Like, I hear you, but you know what? I've experienced so much and have been through so much that I don't even know if I can really share everything, because not the people that I think would need to know beforehand don't know yet. But I've chosen, and it's taken me a long time, don't get me wrong, but I've chosen better. And I can say now that confident little girl that was once there has resurfaced. Now she doesn't feel so much like a stranger, because she was always there. I'm talking about myself in a third person, it's odd, but yeah. We all have a choice. We have the opportunity to change the middle and the end of our stories. And I would say I'm in the middle, somewhere in the middle. And I'm really, really excited about where it's going. But yeah, I think for the first episode, we're done. I'm going to refer to my little notebook where I wrote down the starts of my story. We are done. So, see you soon.